Palmer Rockwood, broadcasting from Bainbridge Island, where ancient evergreens pierce the sky and the sound carries stories older than memory itself. For returning listeners, you already know what we do here. We crack open the spine of poetry and let it breathe. We refuse to let verse suffocate in academic quiet. And for the newcomers, you have discovered something rare, a sanctuary where poems leap off the page and reclaim their birthright as living, breathing creatures. Episode 26 is before us. We have 26. This will be our 26th podcast. And if you haven't listened to the previous poetry, I would highly suggest you do. They're all something beautiful, something wild, something new, something different. We have discovered that transformative verse doesn't just touch you, it rewrites the narrative within you. When I'm not here on the podcast once a week, Ben and I, shepherd writers through Bainbridge Island Press, we are bringing in books and chapbooks that refuse to whisper when they need to roar. But Poetics, this is where we unleash what's been captured on those pages. So today's expedition is voice. Voice, that flickering ember that ignites the lines. We will wade through the sublime, through the personal, through the discovering, through the identity. And this is poetry's true territory. Whether you're a free verse veteran or someone whose last poem lives in a drawer somewhere, you're exactly where you need to be. This is Literature Unleashed. Ready? Let's begin. Welcome to Poetics Podcast. Well, the poetry that we are listening to today is from a recent chapbook that we published on Express. And the title of the chapbook is Simultaneous States, and the poet is Beatriz Fitzgerald Fernandez. I was blown away when I opened up her manuscript. I could do a podcast on every single poem that she wrote, and I'm so grateful that she sent it, and I'm so grateful that I was able to read it. So today we're going to be talking about the first poem in the chapbook. There's going to be other ones that I'll talk about another time. But the first one I thought was really beautiful. That's a vague term, but it really was. I have more analysis later, but I'm going to do that after we listen to the poem. I'm not going to give any, no spoilers. So the title of the poem is Native, Antilles High School, Fort Buchanan, Puerto Rico. So that's the title, and the subtitle. And a little bit about the author. So Beatriz Fernandez, she's also the author of other poetry books. She has The Ocean Between Us, that's by Backbone Press in 2017. She also wrote a book called Shining from a Different Firmament, and that's by Finishing Line Press. That was in 2015. She also she presented at the Miami Book Fair. She's read her poetry on South Florida's NPR news station, and she's a former grand prize winner of the Writer's Digest Poetry Award. She is clearly a very skilled poet, and her craft of language is astonishing. And so before I say anything else about this poem, we're going to listen to Fernandez read this poem for us.
Native, Antilles High School, Fort Buchanan, Puerto Rico. The natives are restless, he wrote on the classroom chalkboard. Some of the kids sniggered. I didn't get the joke, but I laughed along with the rest because I thought they were my friends, and I liked this boy with his perfect white teeth and sleek golden hair like a cap of feathers that I never saw ruffled. The drumming from the hallway grew louder. A few of us were left alone in the classroom. The teacher never returned. The words remained on the board, and I remember them now. Something about the darting, daring way he wrote it, the way my classmates laughed, the furtive sideways glances triggered my defenses. And after all these years, the realization trickled down. He meant me, my kind, my people. We were the natives he was writing about. I never thought of myself as a native of that land, but my island blood was written on my face. My skin, my unruly hair, my brown eyes all declared me native nonetheless. Never mind where my heart was born. And years later, I have come to agree with that boy I admired from afar. I am a native after all. Native to another world, native to the future, native to a place where no one jeers at the natives, whether we drum or dance or declare our restless, unrequited love out loud. Native, Part 2, Miami, Florida. For I have always known I'm in love with a country that does not love me back. I remain a member of a non-native invasive species. Open season lasts all year long. Like poisonous cane toads, Burmese pythons, giant African land snails, and Muscovy ducks, the authorities print pamphlets with instructions on how to eradicate us. Quickly, thoroughly, usually with a shovel, sometimes with a word.
A lot of times when you're listening to or reading literature and poetry, as you're reading, you're like, this is a similar voice. There's similar language. There was a poet. Her name is Julia de Burgos, and she wrote a poem called To Julia de Burgos. And it was a poem that she wrote to herself, against herself, kind of. It was her inner self is the poetic voice. It was criticizing how her public self could be, how she is submissive to things imposed by society. There's the private figure, there's the public figure, and in her poem, she is struggling with these two people of, she is a private person, but then she's writing, and she's writing herself, and so she is exposing herself. And that is, honestly, that is something in writing. You are writing something about yourself. It doesn't matter if it is fantasy, it doesn't matter if it's poem. You're in there. And there is also this fear. I can't speak for everyone, can speak for myself. There's a fear that when you're exposing yourself, that people are going to see a part of you. And what does that mean? How does that feel when you tell the world, this is a vulnerable part of myself? Now, on the other hand, that is crucial when you're writing, because when you read a poem, you want to be able to say, I know exactly how that feels. And as a writer, you hope that that comes through. Whatever eternal emotion you are conveying in your writing, if it's grief, if it's love, if it is embarrassment, if it's shame, there's something that you are expressing, and then the reader is coming to your poem with their tool bag of life experiences and saying, I have that in my tool bag. And that is the power, and that's the transformative power of poetry, where you're not alone. And we're not. Right now, there's 7 billion people on Earth. There's been more people in the history of Earth. We have all stubbed our toe. We've all lost something. We have all gained something. It's just, these are universal feelings. So anyways, that being said, when I was reading Fernandez's poetry, I was thinking how similar her writing was to other great writers. And so I just wanted to point out, if you wanted to read Julia she's a wonderful poet. But in the meantime, what's really interesting, so there's a few things that I wanted to talk about, especially with skill in this poem, because this is a very powerful poem that deserves very thoughtful discussion. And this was a very easy collection to publish. So there were some observations that I had. This poem captures the delayed understanding that often comes with these experiences, especially in our early teenage life. Can you remember when you were 12 and something was happening, and all of a sudden you realize something else is happening? And I never realized it until now. And all of a sudden you're like, I don't know what this means, but this means something. That moment of transformation, when you start to explore the world around you through yourself and through situations, that is what transforms us into the people we are. So the speaker initially is laughing along with these racist jokes, only to realize years later that she was the target. This is reflecting this common experience of marginalized people who recognized discrimination in hindsight. This transformation from shame into pride and into hope is beautifully rendered through this repetition of the word native in the poem. So what begins as a slur is becoming this source of identity and this source of strength. And the speaker evolves from rejecting the label to embracing it on her own terms. There are physical details that Fernandez adds. She uses the phrase unruly hair and brown eyes and island blood. The abstract concept of otherness is ground into this concrete embodied experience, making this discrimination feel visceral and feel immediate. Now, why is this narrative important? This story needs telling because it is illuminating this lasting psychological impact of classroom racism and the complex process of reclaiming identity. This poem gives voice to the experience of being marked as other in spaces where you are supposed to belong. And it shows how young people internalize these messages before they even understand them. So, why is coming of age poetry and literature so crucial for adults? Because we aren't just experiencing a moment that so many have had in their childhood. It's still relevant to adults now, and this is why we need to read it just with her entire self. Adults continue to process and to reframe childhood experiences throughout our lives. This poem is showing how understanding deepens with time. What seemed like harmless teasing is revealing itself as systematic othering. And this delayed recognition is something that many adults experience as they gain new perspectives on their formative years. This poem is also speaking to ongoing struggles with identity and belonging that don't end in adolescence. Adults still navigate spaces where they are marked as different, where they're marked as other, where there is language being used that tries to give them an identity that they did not ask for. And the strategies for survival and acceptance continue to remain relevant. There's two skillful crafts in this poem that I really appreciated. The poem uses temporal shifts wonderfully. It is moving between the past and the present to show how memory works. The immediate scene, the gradual realization, and the final acceptance, all layered together to create this emotional complexity. Also, the transformation of the word native is demonstrating this sophisticated use of reclamation. The poet takes a term used to diminish and weaponizes it as a source of power, creating a native to the future, as she put it, that is really transcending the original insult. And in this poem, the poet is capturing the authority of language. She defines her identity. She has the final say. This is who I am. And it is a place of hope, and it is a place of strength. I really appreciated that. When I got to the end, I felt stronger because of her strength. I had hope because she had hope. I'm moved. I'm just moved. There's two things that you might personally like in this. I have a whole bunch of notes in front of me. I always have notes. I always have notes on everything. So, two things that I really appreciated about this was the specificity of the place and the setting. Place is very important in poetry because poetry can get abstract. If it is placed in a setting, if there is a visual, it is very helpful. And also, it tells a lot more about where we're beginning, where we are in this narrative, than just expositorily explaining it. So, Antilles High School, Fort Buchanan, Puerto Rico. That's telling us where it is and what time it is, what period in time. So that gives us the signpost. It tells us, it grounds us in this universal experience in a particular location. That is already, just in that alone, it is setting the authenticity of a lived-in rather than abstract poem. And then finally, the ending's vision is the future where she says, no one jeers at the natives. And the ending of the poem offers hope without being naive. It is acknowledging the ongoing struggle while imagining a better world where cultural expression is celebrated rather than mocked. I really liked this poem. I liked it because it was her childhood experience. And I'm so grateful that Fernandez wrote this poem, and she shared it with us, and we were able to publish it. And this is a vulnerable poem. This is a poem that she wrote about her life and what she experienced, and she invited us to share that experience with her. And that is a gift that I love, and it makes me happy to see this. It wasn't a good experience, but as an adult, she is saying this is something that has not gone away. And there are so many others who have this experience of otherness in a variety of ways. And that otherness is not easy, and we're always processing. So fundamentally, well-crafted poem, beautiful poetry, the language is lovely, and Fernandez is a beautiful person, and I'm so grateful that I was able to share this with you, and I have a couple others that I'm going to be sharing with you later, so stay tuned. And that's it, party people. So if you have enjoyed diving into this world of verse with us, please join us next time. We've got more poets to meet, more poems to explore, and more literary adventures to share. So until then, keep reading, keep writing, and keep poetry close to your heart. Thank you for joining POETICS Podcast, where we bring poetry to life, one verse at a time.